Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Grey Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 29th of October, 2021. Right, everyone, let's get into it. So, all-time high day for ETH today. We went to, I think, 4,400, so finally broke through the old all-time high of around 43.75, 43.80 there. We did touch it the other day, then came back off. It went under 4K, but now, we kind of went back up to 4,400, and right now it's 43.24. So again, we've come down a little bit here. But I mean, I woke up to this actually. It was pretty funny because I usually wake up at like 11 a.m. Most mornings, and I kind of like woke up later today because there were kind of really strong winds last night that kind of kept me up, so I just slept in a little bit. And I kind of checked the price and I'm like, okay, we're almost at all-time high. This is amazing. So I tweeted out this picture GM with like the happy kind of Wojak here, and then I got to my PC, and as I sat down on my PC, I was kind of just looking at the chart and I was like, wow, okay, yes, and we went to all-time high. And I was like, oh yeah, we finally broke through it. And it's funny because I'd been saying to some friends for quite a while that I thought we were going to get to all-time high in October, and they were saying to me, no, it's going to be November, like, and they'll, obviously doing their TA and looking at the charts. I'm like, nah, guys, I feel like it's going to be October. And then when we hit it the other day, that I didn't really get credited with it because we only hit it on some exchanges, we didn't break through it. So I was like, okay, fair enough, but I kind of counted it, but then today we kind of broke through it, and it's funny. Like, I don't know, kind of like what's gonna happen from here. Are we going to break through it again? Like when you guys are watching this, or kind of like over the next few days? We seem to be just hanging around the all time high, which is fine, I think. But it goes back to what I was saying yesterday about how we had that kind of like massive SHIB pump, and everyone was like, oh, this is a top signal. We're going to crash. Like, we're going to go into a bear market again. This is ridiculous. And I kind of said that I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think there's just too many kind of like tailwinds behind ETH right now. That's keeping me really bullish. And we're going to talk about some of them on the refill, of course. But yeah, I mean, it was just really great to wake up to another ETH all-time high. Even though we've come down a bit, it's kind of like a little bit annoying. The thing that I pay attention to a lot these days is kind of like the funding rates. And what the funding rates show you is basically how much are people paying to be long a certain asset? Now, if the funding rates are high, that generally means that there's a lot of leverage in the system, and it's kind of like, it means that there could be kind of like, if the price was to go down, there could be a bunch of liquidations that pushes the price down even further, and we could have one of those sell-offs that we all kind of like know and love, right? So I kind of watched that, and I saw that going up like rapidly as we kind of blew through all-time high, and I was like, oh god, why? These apes like leveraging up already? Like, come on, guys, like, relax for a little bit. Let us go a bit higher than the all-time high before you start leveraging up. But I guess people love to do that, right? Love to get greedy, love to long the all-time high. So I don't know. And I think the other thing worth mentioning as well is that ETH is basically, I mean, it's still basically at its all-time high, and Bitcoin is not even near it. I think Bitcoin's 61K right now. I think its new all-time high was like 67 or 68K. I mean, ETH just keeps gaining, and I'm not surprised by this at all, given how many tailwinds are behind ETH right now. And I mean, obviously I'm biased because like I'm really into Ethereum, and you guys know I don't hold any Bitcoin. But I mean, there's a reason I don't hold any, is because I just don't see the point of Bitcoin in the world that we're in. I don't see the point of Bitcoin going forward, really. I know some people do, and so, sorry, not just some people, a lot of people do, and a lot of people kind of like see it as a store of value, digital gold, has its place, and that's fine, but that's like a niche to me. Like, I don't see that as being a massive kind of growth vehicle for it. I see it kind of putting a cap on how high Bitcoin can go. And then I look at ETH, and I kind of look at all the kind of, not just the tailwinds, but all the value accrual mechanisms for ETH as an asset. And I'm like, I'm so much more bullish on ETH. I'm so much more bullish on the Ethereum ecosystem and what's happening there. Everything, like all the popular stuff that we always talk about, like DeFi and NFTs and kind of like DAOs and metaverse stuff, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. I just can't help but be really, really bullish on Ethereum. So yeah, I think that's just, I mean, it's also funny to see this is like breaking precedent too. Usually it's Bitcoin that goes into price discovery first, which technically it did. I mean, like, when it went to its all-time high the other day, but it's come back down and kind of got rejected, while ETH has just kept trending up, especially against Bitcoin, like on the ratio as well. So from that point of view, I don't know. It feels like the winds have changed. I've personally felt the winds have that the winds have changed for a long time now, pretty much since, like, I guess DeFi summer, or at least the start of it. like June 2020, I think, when the Comp token launched as part of Compound, and then we had like the kickoff of DeFi Summer, that really changed everything in my mind. That basically got Ethereum to like the forefront of many people's minds, and basically opened the door to a lot of people kind of like coming into Ethereum from other ecosystems. You know, we had a massive migration of BTC come over to Ethereum from the Bitcoin network to participate in DeFi. And since then, I felt like Ethereum has really just taken hold of the entire crypto space and been the main focus of it since June of 2020. And I mean, it's shown in the price as well. Like, it's out. I mean, yes, Bitcoin has gone up as well, but it's outperformed Bitcoin since March, since the bottom last year. It's outperformed Bitcoin. It continues to, and you know, now it's kind of in its hit its all-time high, and kind of like wants to go into price discovery before Bitcoin as well. So yeah, it's very different to what kind of like the ecosystem is used to, and I don't know how many people actually realize that. I don't know how many people have come to terms with that yet. There is definitely, I think the markets are confused as well, where they're like, you know, is you know, what the hell's going on? Like, ETH is actually doing something that people aren't expecting, because ETH is usually weak in Q4 against Bitcoin, but right now, it's not. Obviously, there's still 2 months left of Q4, and everything can reverse from here. But I don't know. I'm not feeling that. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens over the next few months. I mean, these sorts of things is not really anything to worry about if you're a long-term person. You know, I'm a long-term guy as well. You guys know that. But essentially, I just like kind of looking at these sorts of things, because for me, I'm in this ecosystem to see Ethereum continue to win, continue to dominate, continue to basically be the substrate for everything to run on. And you know, I want Ethereum to be number one. I don't think Bitcoin deserves to be number one. I think that its value, and it's kind of like, I guess its spot at number one is there because of the fact that it's been around for much longer, and it obviously has like a more institutional adoption to an extent, and kind of like a massive network effect, but so does Ethereum. And I think Ethereum has caught up to Bitcoin in everything except market cap at this point. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, enough about price. Got a bunch of other updates to get through. So Diva, the DevCon unicorn, put out a update tweet today about when DevCon 6 is going to be taking place, and another event apparently that looks to be taking place in South Africa, which is pretty cool. So basically, DevCon 6 will be happening in fall of 2022. Now, I really hate when people use seasons to refer to the time of the year, because I'm sorry, the Northern Hemisphere is not the only hemisphere, right? Like, I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, and so are a lot of people. We do not have the same kind of like seasons as the Northern Hemisphere. Obviously, it's reversed. So I would rather people just say like, you know, give a quarter, like a Q1, Q2, or like late this year, early this year. And that's what they did with their follow-up tweet, because people were confused. And they basically said DevCon 6 is coming in late 2022. So basically fall for the Northern Hemisphere, even though DevCon 6 is being hosted in Bogota, Colombia, which is in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's just kind of funny how that worked out there. But yeah, I mean, I do plan to get out to this DevCon 6. I mean, DevCons are the biggest Ethereum conferences there. You know, I've only been to one. Funny enough, I went to the one in Osaka. That was my first and only DevCon. And I unfortunately hadn't gone to the previous four, but it was amazing. I loved it. I loved kind of like, you know, how many people were there, everything that went on there. It's obviously the most Ethereum kind of like aligned conference, and it's the only conference that the Ethereum Foundation holds. So it's a pretty big one. So I'm hoping to get out there at late 2022 here, and then apparently they're teasing another kind of like conference in early 2022 in South Africa. I don't know where it's going to be in, maybe not just South Africa. It seems like the map here is teasing like Africa, the whole continent, but I'm just assuming it's South Africa. So it could be Cape Town or Lagos or somewhere like that. I've never been, so I would love to go to that as well, but we'll have to see. And, you know, I kind of like mentioned on Twitter the other day that I think the first conference I'm going to be going to is going to be ETH Denver in February. I definitely want to get out to that. The dates were actually announced for that. It's pretty much the normal dates, like the 17th to the 21st of February. So I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of people there as well. I'm definitely wanting to get out to that one. But yeah, these are the dates, I guess, for DevCon 6, which got delayed because of COVID. It was supposed to happen in 2020. Obviously, isn't going to happen this year, and now it's going to happen in late 2022. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But there are a bunch of other conferences in 2022 that I'll be going to as well, and hope to see all of you there. All right, so the biggest piece of news of the last 24 hours is Facebook renaming themselves to Meta in reference to the metaverse. So they say here that they're helping to build the metaverse, a place where people will play and connect in 3D. Welcome to the next chapter of social connection. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not going to go through everything in extreme detail, but the first thing I want to say is I hate the logo. I look at this logo and I'm like, I get what you're doing. It's kind of like a play on a game controller. It's a play on a VR headset. But I just don't like it. I don't know. It looks weird to me. It doesn't look like a good logo. But anyway, I mean, that's subjective. What I should focus on is kind of like what this means for the ecosystem. This is actually pretty huge. Like, no matter what you think of Facebook as a company, there's no denying that, I mean, they're huge, right? They have billions of users across Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, all their other kind of like things like Oculus and stuff like that. And, everyone knows about them. For them to rename themselves to Meta and to put their full weight behind kind of like turning into a metaverse company, and kind of like using the term metaverse for all their kind of like existing users to see, is a huge endorsement and validation of what we've been building within the crypto Ethereum ecosystems. Now, of course, we don't need their endorsement. We don't want these centralized parties to kind of like encroach on what we're trying to build in a decentralized way. But what this does is it basically incepts the idea of a metaverse into people's heads. So when they come and get onboarded into like Ethereum, into kind of like the layer 2s, like Immutable X and stuff like that are building these NFT metaverse products, they're already going to have exposure to the term. It's not going to be a brand new thing to them. They're going to be like, oh, that's like that thing that Facebook's doing. And a lot of people will kind of look to that and be like, this must be legit, right? Because as much hate as Facebook gets, there are still like billions of people that use it. So just because people hate it doesn't mean they aren't using it, and it doesn't mean that everyone hates it. There are plenty of people out there who love using it, obviously Instagram and WhatsApp and Oculus and things like that. I mean, I have an Oculus as well. I don't really use any of these apps. I use Facebook Messenger sometimes, but I don't really use the other apps or anything like that. But I think that this is just like a huge onboarding vehicle. Now, obviously, Meta or Facebook or whatever aren't going to build a decentralized metaverse. They're going to build a closed kind of like garden, a closed platform. It's not going to be open. Facebook has a history of basically building completely centralized and closed things and actually kicking developers off of their APIs and basically making developers' lives really hard to build anything on top of Facebook. So I don't expect this to be much different from that. But from that point of view, this is kind of like where crypto and Ethereum's opportunity lies, where Ethereum is the complete opposite. It is open, permissionless, decentralized. You can build whatever you want on there. There's no central party that can remove it from the Ethereum network. And, if you build it in a truly decentralized way, the users of your whatever you've built, you can't take their assets or kind of like their things away from them. And obviously the Ethereum, the underlying platform is decentralized, so it can't unilaterally take away anyone's kind of assets either. So that's what kind of like, I guess, Meta and Facebook and everything are contending with. But at the same time, they have a massive head start due to the fact that they have a massive user base. But they also have headwinds. They have regulatory headwinds, which they suffered during trying to launch Facebook Libra, which became Diem, which I now think is called Nova. And I don't know kind of like what the status is there, but they've gone through like a ton of headwinds there with that. So I think they're gonna see that come out here as well. And also the fact that because it's going to be closed off, then in my mind, it's just not going to attract the right kinds of people that you want to be attracting to build out a metaverse platform, to build out something that's exciting and something that people, developers are going to get excited about, especially because users are one thing, but without developers building things, it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't matter how many users you have. If the developers aren't building new and innovative stuff on your platform, then the users are going to go elsewhere. And that's exactly why Facebook has this thing where they like to acquire massive kind of like applications and other companies in order to kind of eat the users, but also not have to basically build it themselves. So, Facebook acquired Instagram for $1 billion. And at the time, that was actually viewed as like a very expensive acquisition, but it obviously played out very nicely for them. And then they acquired WhatsApp for, I think it was like 20-something billion dollars, some ridiculous amount of money. And then they acquired Oculus as well for a large amount of money. They tried to acquire Snapchat, but Snapchat turned them down. And I'm sure they've made like a bunch of other acquisitions as well. But the thing is, they can't acquire Ethereum, right? They can't buy Ethereum. What they can do is join Ethereum, but they can't buy Ethereum. There is no one to buy it from. Like, they can become a validator if they want. They can become many validators, but they cannot buy Ethereum, make it part of like the Meta, group of companies, and basically do whatever they want with it. That's not happening. Yes, they can, quote unquote, acquire companies that are building on top of Ethereum if they're centralized companies. But even still, if there are developers building decentralized products, there's no way for them to be acquired either. Like, you can do maybe a token swap where the community comes together and says, okay, well, we're happy to get bought out. Here's our tokens, and we kind of just like we'll get our money for our tokens. But even still, I just don't see that happening. And I think that is the best defense Ethereum has against something like this, and even an offense, because we being Ethereum get all the really innovative developers coming into the ecosystem that want to build on this sort of stuff and don't want to kind of like build on Facebook's closed off ecosystem, where there is a high chance that if you build something that Facebook doesn't like or that Meta doesn't like, it's going to get removed. It's just going to get deleted. That's not going to happen to you on Ethereum, and that's not going to happen to you on a lot of the things building on Ethereum either, which I think is really, really cool. So yeah, I mean, I wrote a bit more about this in the Daily Gwei newsletter today, but those are just my general thoughts there on what's happening. We'll have to see how this plays out over the coming years. But I think Brendan put it actually best here, where he basically put out a tweet where he said, so basically it's Ethereum versus Facebook in a race to create a compelling metaverse. Open versus closed, transparent versus opaque, permissionless versus permissioned, community-owned versus Zuck-owned. My bets are placed. Let's build a better future together. So obviously, I mean, Brendan, he's the co-founder and COO of Dharma, so obviously his bets are on Ethereum, and so are mine, even more obviously, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are betting on Ethereum as well. And I don't know, maybe, what the funny thing is, like, Meta can actually build whatever they want to build on Ethereum. They can just build it as a roll-up. Like, imagine if that actually happened. Like, I had a friend today message me about it and say, imagine if Meta built themselves as a roll-up on Ethereum. How huge would that be? And it would be. And you know what? I actually don't think it's far-fetched to say that they will be doing something like that, because they get to tap into an already kind of like existing user base that is used to kind of like NFTs, metaverse, crypto gaming, and stuff like that, and get to kind of build their own thing. Like, their rollup can be centralized; it doesn't have to be a decentralized rollup, but and they can still kind of maintain complete control over it. But they get the interoperability of the entire Ethereum ecosystem. So I'm actually sure. I'm actually not going to be surprised if that happens either. And I'm just seeing a comment here that Novi, which is what Libra into DM into Novi, is actually Pax now, which is an ERC20 on Ethereum. So, funny enough, Facebook has already ended up on Ethereum with one of their products. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But interesting times ahead for the metaverse and for centralized versus decentralized kind of like products and services. So Bankless had a really great newsletter today where they basically went through Ethereum's Q3 results and compared Q3 2021 to Q3 2020. So you can see in this table here, I can't maximize it because my camera's blocking it. There you go, you can see it there. They've got a bunch of different metrics here they compare between Q3 2020 and Q3 2021, and compare the growth. Network revenue is up from 321 billion to 1.9 trillion. Which is quite crazy. If I'm reading that, no, sorry. Network revenue is not value settled. I was reading that wrong. So it's up from 321 million to 1.9 billion, which is still a growth of like 5x, which is insane. Value settled went from $107 billion to $536 billion, up about 4x there. ETH staked went from 0 because the Beacon chain wasn't live to it's pretty much, it's at 8 million ETH now, which is obviously a growth of infinity%. The issuance rate of ETH has actually dropped by 30% thanks to ETH being burned. We didn't have 1559 last Q3, which means that value of ETH burned was 0. Now it's $1.3 billion. I think it's more than that, to be honest. I think this number is off here. Daily active addresses went up 24%, which I actually think daily active addresses, as I've explained before, is a kind of like I would say an inferior metric for layer 1 because a lot of users are moving to layer 2. So I expect daily active addresses to either just remain flat or go down from here, because as time goes on, the most active addresses on Ethereum will just be whales and the layer 2s posting their proofs. and stuff like that instead of end users. So yeah, I don't expect that to kind of like grow much further from here because people are just going to move to layer 2. DeFi TVL is up 12x to 123 billion from 10 billion. The decentralized exchange volume is at 48 billion in Q3 2020. Now it's at 189 billion in Q3 2021. And as you can see, I mean, you can go down the list here. The growth in general has just been absolutely insane. I think the most insane growth is OpenSea sales, $5 million in Q3 2020. In Q3 2021, it was $6.7 billion, a growth of 141,847%. That's insane, right? Absolutely insane. And L2 TVL as well went from 8.4 million to 2.5 billion, which is a growth of almost 30,000%. So as you can see, Ethereum's growth over the last year has been completely insane. ETH is still undervalued because at the end of Q3 last year, that would be September, I think, if I'm doing it right in my head, October, November. Yeah, September. I don't remember exactly what the ETH price was, but I'm pretty sure it was like $400, or it might maybe not even $400. I think it was around $400. And ETH is only up 10x from there. I mean, and given like the growth that Ethereum has kind of like gone through, especially because we have the issuance being reduced due to the burn, and also the tailwinds that are coming for ETH, I would say right now ETH is just extremely undervalued. I just don't, and it's undervalued because people don't understand it. People don't understand like this sort of stuff, and don't understand like how fast Ethereum is still growing. And the fact of the matter is we're still early, like super early. Like think about it for a sec. DeFi itself is like still very insular. It's still very crypto native. It hasn't actually penetrated into the real world in any real way yet. Could you imagine the entire world's financial system running on Ethereum in like the late stage of adoption? Imagine how much growth there still is to have here. There is, I mean, I'm just going to spit random numbers here. There is like tens of thousands of at times more growth left in everything that we're doing here. And that's going to translate to obviously ETH being burned, value flowing to ETH for things like staking, and also use as collateral and stuff like that within DeFi. I don't know, guys. This is, again, goes back to my thesis around $100,000 ETH over the next kind of like 5 to 10 years. I just don't see a world where that doesn't happen, given that Ethereum is just growing so quickly. I don't see Ethereum losing its market share to anyone, really. I know that people say, oh, Ethereum has already lost its market share because TVL has gone to other networks instead of Ethereum, but Ethereum's TVL is still growing. It's just the pie is getting bigger. So from that point of view, yes, maybe Ethereum's overall market share, if you're measuring a TVL, will go down, but Ethereum itself is still growing at a really rapid pace. And Ethereum's L2 ecosystem is just now starting off, and that will grow at a rapid pace as well. So really cool metrics here from Bankless. As you're just giving this a read, I'm going to power through this because I'm realizing I'm at 22 minutes already. So and just on the fee burn as well, the Ultrasound Money account tweeted out over the last 3 days, the ETH supply has actually been decreasing due to the fee burn, as I explained yesterday. Now, I haven't actually looked at it like this before. When you actually put the numbers here, this is crazy. October 26th, we had 117,757,635 ETH. On October 27th, we had 117,757,327 ETH. So we burned more than we issued. And then again on October 28th, we burned more than we issued again by about 2,000 ETH. Which is crazy. I mean, this is a net deflationary ETH right here. Now, this is during proof of work and proof of stake as well. Both networks issuing new ETH. Once the merge happens, every single day will be a deflationary ETH day by a lot. And, if we maintain the current fee revenue, but at that point, I think it's 2% right now of reduction in supply each year. So 2% each year over the next 10 years, that's a 20% reduction in the ETH supply, and that's assuming that the kind of like fee revenue doesn't go up. Which, for all intents and from all the signals that I'm seeing, I do definitely think it's going to keep going up over the years. So you could say like there's a 20% reduction in the ETH supply from here, which would get us to probably under 100 million ETH, which is crazy, right? And this is coming from like the active supply. So this is not just coming from cold storage, because the ETH being burned is coming from the active supply that people are using to pay fees, and then also the fact that we're dropping issuance by about 85% with the merge. That's also active ETH that usually gets sold to cover running costs. So yeah, putting it like this and being able to see it and kind of like putting the hard numbers is crazy. And I don't think people appreciate the craziness of a deflationary ETH. So Phonon DAO has introduced themselves today. They said running Phonon here, and they said say hello to a whole new approach to scaling and privacy for the entire blockchain ecosystem. And Phonon describes themselves as a community-owned protocol enabling off-chain transfer of digital assets using secure hardware, turn all crypto into peer-to-peer cash, private, fast, and free. Now this is coming out of the Grid Plus team. You guys will know about Grid Plus and their Lattice One hardware wallet product that I have talked about before. This is obviously, Phonon is obviously going to be an integral part of that. You can kind of read this blog post for kind of more details on that, but this is really exciting. I mean, as I've said before, I think privacy is something that the Ethereum ecosystem is still lacking in a big way, and this is another team kind of like tackling it in a way. And this team is also very experienced. Like, if you've used the Lattice One or looked into the specs of the Lattice One hardware wallet, it is the most secure hardware wallet on the market, like by far. It has protections that no other hardware wallet can even dream of. So if there's one team that I would actually trust to build something like this, like a secure, hardware-enforced private payment system, it is the Grid Plus team. So I'm looking forward to Phonon. I think this looks really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing it more in the wild and actually using it myself. And I'm just really, really glad that we get to see more of these privacy kind of like protocols coming to market. And speaking of that as well, John Wu from Aztec Network put out a thread about what Aztec Connect is going to enable for I guess, Ethereum. And it's going to enable private swaps and limit orders on Uniswap, making a private on-chain order book possible for the first time. This kind of stuff is kind of mind-blowing, right? Because we're going beyond payments, and we're going to swaps and doing private kind of swaps on Uniswap. So he kind of put out this thread, which I suggest reading, but essentially he starts off the thread by saying, some background on Aztec Connect. Connect is Aztec's layer 2 to layer 1 privacy bridge. So meaning you'll be able to take shielded assets from the Aztec network, which is a rollup that lives on top of Ethereum, and instantly, interact directly with any L1 smart contract, accessing L1 liquidity with full privacy. So essentially, you can kind of like go from layer 2 to layer 1 in a very private way, do private trades, private transfers, all that sort of stuff. And also kind of like obviously reducing gas costs because it's on a layer 2. Now, Aztec's layer 2 is actually called a ZK rollup. It's not like a ZK rollup on top of a ZK rollup, but it is privacy within a ZK rollup, which I think is really awesome. So highly recommend giving this kind of like thread a read here. It's very interesting, but as I said, very, very bullish on privacy protocols going forward. So a lot of you will have seen this CryptoPunk that sold for $532 million today, which wasn't a real sale. What ended up happening was that, as Mariano explains here, someone flash loaned this money, listed their punk for sale for an insane amount, bought it, got the ETH back from the other account and repaid the flash loan. And Robert Miller put out a tweet with a closer look here. Where, how it worked and why people would do this. And he basically explained that, why would people kind of do this? Why would someone do this? It doesn't make any sense. They didn't make any money. What are they trying to prove here? But Robert basically says, as this wasn't a real sale, it wasn't an exploit, no one made any money, but they probably did this to generate a bunch of buzz about it on Twitter and troll a bit, which is kind of funny, right? Like, I mean, anyone can do this, right? Like flash loans, I mean, the way flash loans work is that it literally gives anyone the ability to borrow, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, or as much money as they can get out of these protocols that allow you to do flash loans. And as long as you repay it back in the same block, you're able to kind of like do whatever you want with the money, which is pretty cool. I mean, flash loans are still one of the most one of the coolest things in the Ethereum ecosystem to me. So yeah, but I thought this was just a little funny thing to point out. So Immutable X or Immutable isn't continuing their dominance in the NFT ecosystem here. They announced yesterday that they have partnered with ESL Gaming, which is the world's leading esports company. And if any of you have into gaming or esports, you'll know just how big ESL is. And they have partnered with them to kind of like have CSGO NFTs issued on the Immutable X Layer 2 network on top of Ethereum. I mean, this is amazing. Immutable, their business development department must be insane because they are landing so many big partnerships right now, which is just really crazy to see. Obviously, Their technology is powered by Starkware, and they're not a ZK rollup; they're a Validium, but they allow massive scalability for Ethereum and for NFTs. Sorry, I should say. And they aren't charging any fees either. They're covering the fees right now. So great to see them land a huge partnership here. And a disclosure: I'm an investor in Immutable, and I should have disclosed other things as well. Like I'm an investor in kind of like and a few other things along here. I got to get that website out that that has my disclosures on there, so I don't have to keep bringing it up. I know I've talked about that for a while, but yeah. Anyway, cool to see this partnership here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what ESL does on Immutable X. Speaking of Starkware, Starknet Alpha 3 is now live on testnet. So they're saying here they continue to prepare for the alpha deployment on mainnet and to improve Starknet based on user feedback. In this release is an improved testing framework, improved compilation time, and syntax for short strings, which means this is pretty much a developer-focused kind of release. And I saw someone comment about this, someone from Starkware, I think, comment that Starknet will actually be deployed in alpha to mainnet end of November. It's going to come like late November instead of early or mid. So something to keep in mind there as well. Just getting through the rest of these updates quickly. So Alchemy, blockchain infrastructure provider, announced that they have raised a massive $250 million Series C at a valuation of $3.5 billion. And this round was led by A16Z. Now, for those of you who don't know what Alchemy is, it's because it sits in the background. You will probably have used Alchemy if you have used any of the apps that use it to kind of like offer you services. It's kind of very similar to Infura, where they basically offer infrastructure for blockchain, such as nodes and like archive nodes, full nodes, all that sort of stuff. And obviously this is very, very valuable for the ecosystem going forward. So this is incredible growth. I mean, incredible raise, and obviously incredible growth too, because of the fact that they've been powering some of the biggest apps out there, such as OpenSea, Aave, DYDX. I mean, we've all used these apps before, and they obviously support Ethereum, but they're also going to be supporting other networks like Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, and more. So yeah, congrats on the raise to Alchemy here. This is a huge raise, right? It's one of the biggest in the ecosystem. $3.5 billion valuation. Funny thing is that like, I think, is a token coming? Isn't it coming? I would actually put my money on a token coming, but I don't know how you would farm the airdrop for Alchemy. Like, are they just going to airdrop their token to everyone who used one of the Alchemy powered apps? Maybe. Are they even going to do a token? I don't know. But if I'm speculating and I'm kind of like thinking that they will, well, yeah, I mean, will they even do an airdrop? I don't know. Like, you don't really usually see a Series C raise in projects that do tokens. They usually stop at Series B, and most of them stop at like the Series A or seed phase. They don't go to a Series C if they're going to do a token. So that's why I'm kind of like on the fence if they'll do one or not. They may just kind of like go public in the normal kind of way and have like a public equity and shares that you can purchase. But if they do a token, they do an airdrop, I would say that there's no real way to farm it other than using the apps that they're powering, which is pretty much like a lot of apps out there. So something to keep in mind for sure. All right, last up here is a shout out to Scott here, who basically announced a collab between ETH University and Hack Lodge, which is and what they're kind of like got here is a Web3 edition of Hack Lodge. So what this is a Web3 focused hacker house for undergraduates during the winter break of January 8th to 16th in the Bay Area. So if that applies to you, you can apply now to Hack Lodge. Here, the link will be linked in the YouTube description, of course. But yeah, if you're a developer or someone who wants to get involved with this sort of stuff, definitely check that out. And my pet peeve comes back to annoy me again by I guess referring to times in with seasons like winter break. It's hilarious because when I say winter break, I'm like, well, that's like July, right? Because it's winter here in July. But no, it's January 8th to 16th, 2022, I assume. So definitely go check this out if that fits you. But on that note, I think I'm going to end it there. But a quick reminder, there's an AMA tomorrow in the Discord channel. Definitely go check that out. Ask your questions in the AMA series channel if you can't make it. All the details are in Discord in the kind of like calendar channel, so definitely go check that out. But on that note, I'm going to end it there. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all on the AMA or on next week's Refuel. See you everyone.